Hi guys, and welcome to a new video on Sonal's life. So as you can tell from the title of this video, we are here to look at everything that went down during the recent, so basically last night's New Japan pay-per-view, so Battle in the Valley. As you can probably tell by the t-shirt I'm wearing, it's going to be a very bittersweet video. But as always, I'm going to go through all the matches I watched, my thoughts, the results, and what is coming up next for New Japan. Now, we started with a opening match. So the opening show, it was called a buy-in, I think. And we had two really great singles matches. So we started off with some New Japan Young Lion representation. So Alex Coughlin was facing JR Kratos. Now, I don't really watch New Japan Strong, you guys know that. But I've been told that there's been a nice feud going on between these two. JR Kratos is a big man. And you know what? Even though Alex Coughlin looks quite small, he is small, but he's very strong. I mean, I say small. He's small compared to Kratos. Like, he's still a very big dude. And I think the big thing here has been Coughlin's ability to lift Kratos, like a man of that size. And that was pretty much paramount to this. So for most of it, Kratos was basically demolishing poor Coughlin with chops, strikes, anything you could put in the kitchen sink. At one point, they even went to the top rope, and I was like, men this size shouldn't go. Leave that for the junior heavyweights. However, it was really nice to see two guys, very big, showing different movesets. So submissions, high flying, I guess you could say, strikes, kicks, things like that. In the end, it was a nice way, like, as sad as I was that it was on the main card, because it's always nice to have some Young Lion representation on the main card, especially in such a big singles match. Coughlin got the win with a beautiful German suplex. I guess it shows that in the world of wrestling, it doesn't matter how big you are. If you can find that opening and you have the skills, you can get the win. We then had another match against two, I guess, really well-loved people in New Japan. I say well-loved. One of them's well-loved, and if you carry on watching this video, you'll see why. David Finlay. So yeah, the match was David Finlay against Bobby Fish. Two guys who have, I assume that they would have crossed paths at some point, because obviously Bobby Fish has been in New Japan. He wrestled as part of Redragon, a huge part of the junior division, which probably would have been a similar time that Finlay might have made his debut. And obviously before he went full Young Lion, he actually participated in the Best of Super Junior. This match was oddly quite violent, not violent, but tough, hard hitting. Two guys have very different styles. In a sense, they have both the same core of wrestling, so traditional, mat-based. But their personalities and their flamboyance, I guess, differs greatly. Bobby Fish is much more of a technical guy, whereas in the past we've seen Finlay and known him as the happy-go-lucky guy who has always put on an amazing match for fans. Again, if you carry on watching this video, you'll see why that went out the window sooner rather than later. Finlay. It was a really nice match. Oddly enough, on any other card, these two matches would have been on the main card. They have got four amazing wrestlers known to New Japan fans, but it just showcases the caliber. Unsurprisingly, if you watch the rest of the show, you'd know that Finlay won, and it makes sense going forward. If what happened later didn't happen, and I keep alluding to it, if you know, you know. If you don't, wait and see. I would have said, a win for Finlay. Hopefully this means good things coming up. I don't say that anymore, and you'll see why. We then quickly went on to the main card. So we started with the only tag match that had no real title implications. It was a really chaotic, in the best way, 8-man tag. So we had two teams of 4, Team Rocky Romero and Team Volador Jr., all bringing up to this huge match. Because as you know, Rocky Romero has, I think it's the welterweight, or he has a title from CMLL. So on one team, now let me just check who it was. It was Rocky Romero, Josh Alexander, Adrian Quest, Mascara Dorado. So 4 people that New Japan fans will know well. And then on Volador Jr.'s team, so you'll know Volador Jr. from the Fantastica Mania shows, Volador Jr., Kushida, the DKC, and Kevin Knight. Now, I did a predictions video with some amazing YouTubers on True Heel Heat, which you should watch, because it got very fiery. I said at first, Team Volador is going to win, just because I thought going forward with the story, it would make more sense. I got turned back on that because they went, well, you've got a former Young Lion Kevin Knight and then a Young Lion DKC. So I went, I've changed my pick. I should have just stuck with it. Like he shocked us in the Super Junior Tag League tournament with Kushida, Kevin Knight got the pin over Adrian Quest. which is bizarre to think, but it's really cemented his thing that he is now not a young lion anymore, he is a proper wrestler. The match itself was phenomenal in the sense that, like, it combined everything you love about wrestling. So there was CMLL, high flying lucha, Japanese strong style with the guys like Kushida and obviously Kevin Knight and DKC, and also just general amazing wrestling. It was a great match, and I think those three matches, so combined with the pre-show, was definitely the perfect way to get the crowd excited for some amazing matches. We then got into the bulk of the show, so with the main matches. We started off with the New Japan Strong Openweight title. I don't know if it's IWGP, it might not be. So basically we had the champion Fred Rosser, who has been dominant as hell. I think somebody told me he's held it for like the best part of maybe a year. He's had like 10 defenses against some of the biggest wrestlers in the world. And who else was there to challenge him? It was Kenta. Now going into this match, I was slightly confused because if you watched New Beginning in Osaka, you'd know that Kenta actually lost to Tanahashi, which is the last thing you want to happen ahead of a big title match. However, it was a very good match, so for 90% of it, although Kenta started off his little bit of joking, it was a really good match between two men with very different wrestling styles. So Fred Rosser is a very big, strong, muscular man, using that strength, power, but also his speed in his matches, which is why he's so dominant. Kenta, on the other hand, much smaller guy, years of experience, that sort of is more defensive. He focuses on submissions, strikes, like probably one of the best strikers in the business. And for a lot of it, it was a 16-minute match that had everything in it. Each person was getting the upper hand. It was like you were really confused as to who was going to win because they were both showcasing their best. Because you know what? Kenta might be a Japanese wrestling veteran, but Fred Rosser has also had years in the industry, working his way up, going through the hardships of WWE to become the wrestler he is now. It's Kenta, isn't it? So at one point, Fred Rosser went to get the pin and the referee got knocked down. So obviously the pin didn't happen. Who comes running out? Juice Robinson. You know, after he stopped coming to Japan and he didn't re-sign, I forgot that he still actually does appear on the New Japan Strong shows. So he came, left hand of God, you know, is it right hand of God? One of the hands of God that we came to love when he was a rootin' tootin' babyface. He used that on Fred Rosser. There was also, I think there might have been a low blow. And then in the end, Kenta got the win. On one hand, I'm really happy he got the win because I think, and I've been saying this for like months, that Kenta has needed something to say, yeah, going to New Japan was the right thing, because he's not had that now. The fact that he won in the way he did makes sense, but I just want to see the proper Kenta, the living legend that is the best wrestler on the world. But again, an amazing match, and I think it was probably the perfect time for Fred Rosser to drop the championship. And who knows, maybe we might see him in Japan sooner rather than later, hopefully. We then went into another title match. Now, this one I'm not going to talk about much because I didn't really manage to watch all of it. And also, it's not really guys that I know. So it was for the New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team Championships. Now, it was the champions, Motor City Machine Guns. I don't know why I struggle to say that. So it's Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin versus, I don't know the name. They have a name. But it is Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaac. So I think I'm aware of three. Obviously, Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, everyone knows. They are such a huge part of the junior history in New Japan. Jay White's history, so Jay basically stayed with Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin. Before the pandemic, did some phenomenal things in the Best of Super Junior tournament. Going into this, even though I hadn't watched the shows, I knew that Motor City Machine Guns would win because the title needs huge champions. They need big names. And who is bigger and who is better than probably one of the best teams in the history of tag team wrestling? Motor City Machine Guns. We then went into that match. That match between Eddie Kingston and Jay White. Remember last week when I did my review video on New Japan, the New Beginning show, and Jay lost the Loser Leaves Japan match against Hikuleo. And I was like, that's fine, you know. There's a loophole. Jay can still wrestle in New Japan, but but he'll have to wrestle in America. 2 days before this show, they were on a podcast, so Jay White and Eddie Kingston went, you know what, let's add an added stipulation to this match, because we hate each other as it is. Jay, if you lose, you can never wrestle for New Japan again. Jay was like, shit, I ain't got nothing to lose. If you lose, though, Eddie Kingston, it's kind of a nicer thing. You can never wrestle any New Japan match or any New Japan wrestler, I think, without my permission. My heart dropped when I heard that stipulation. I was like, shit, this is not going well, is it? And then I sort of had high hopes because I had rumour mill that WWE were now focusing on signing independent guys, including Kota Ibushi, oddly enough. The match itself, really great. Like, as much as it should have been higher on the card, and I think if this was the whole stipulation, it should have been a main event match, it was a phenomenal match. Yes, there was the odd low blow from Jay. What else do you expect? But it was a violent, hard-hitting match. Like, I think at one point, Jay started bleeding. And you know Jay doesn't bleed very often because he never gets to that point in a match. Eddie Kingston had this extra fire in him. Like, for someone who is not a contracted New Japan star, the idea that he will not be able to ever wrestle again for anyone in New Japan was a big thing. Surprisingly though, Jay wasn't, I mean at points he was, but he didn't seem to have that fighting energy that you'd expect from someone who literally is putting their entire career in New Japan on the line. Whether you could say it's inevitable because of the results, I think it might have linked to the whole story of losing to Hikuleo. He was defeated. He thought that was a shoo-in win. And then going into another huge match, 2 in like a space of 7 days, it almost seems unheard of. I was like, because I woke up and I watched this show later, so I knew the outcome. But even I was watching, like, willing Jay to do something, like, to get back up, show us chaos, Jay White. Show us the young lion with the passion. I mean, he hit the Blade Runner. I thought, yeah, we're sorted. But then Eddie Kingston smartly, and I don't know why people don't do this, rolled out the ring before getting the pin. So, in the end, Jay White got pinned and he is no longer a member of the New Japan roster. And that broke my heart. Because as you all know, Jay White is the reason I got into New Japan. I've met him 3 times. He is my favourite wrestler on the planet. Like, something about him. He's always been the perfect wrestler. At the end, Jay sat there in the ring, basked in the cheers, held the mic up. And then who should bloody come along but David Finlay? I've done many predictions about what could have happened, and my dream was if Jay loses in a way that was not acceptable to me. So if, for example, Eddie Kingston had cheated, I wanted Finlay to come out, save his best friend, and they could come together. Well, the opposite happened, didn't it? Rather than what I wanted to happen, Finlay came out and attacked Jay. Came out with his shillelagh, did actually a really pretty badass promo, like saying, when I'm in America, I'm Irish. When I'm in Japan, I'm American. I am the gaijin, so the foreigner. And basically, after years and years of everyone wanting this, David Finlay has turned heel at the expense of Jay White, which I guess makes sense. It's almost like a full circle. Jay and Finlay were besties, trained in the dojo. When Jay came back, they had their amazing feud. When he went to Bullet Club, basically that feud heightened and went from just friends having a friendly rivalry to proper enemies. And it only seemed fitting that Finlay would end Jay White's career in New Japan by making his own statement, saying it's not your era. I'm almost hoping that this means that it's not the end for Jay White in New Japan, or at least in the realm of New Japan and AEW, because I feel like that, to leave on that, would break my Switchblade heart. But that happened and I was absolutely traumatized. I was like, why, Jay? I didn't want you to leave. And I almost feel like it's a disservice to him to have him lose such a big match in something other than the main event and something other than in Japan. I feel like if they did it, they should have done it last week in front of the Osaka crowd, which is so important to him, which you can hear all about in my previous video. But yeah, that was a bit sad. And I almost felt like I couldn't watch ahead for the next matches. But Jay White, we love you. And hopefully this is not the end of Jay in New Japan. Because if he goes to WWE, I will probably cry. I feel like I spoke a lot about that Jay White match. And you know and you understand why. But let's get on to the top 3 matches, the top 3 title matches. We started with the IWGP New Japan World Television Championship. Clark Connors facing the champion, Zack Sabre Jr. If you haven't, make sure you watch that press conference because it was actually the funniest thing ever. Zack Sabre Jr. was trying to speak American and it was really funny, but really built up nicely to this match. That was no animosity between the two, just two guys wanting to get the job done. Oddly enough, so I thought this match would be a lot quicker than the Ishii match, but it still went to the 14-minute mark. And what was funny is we saw some amazing stuff from Zack. So he continued with his submissions. That same attitude that if a hold doesn't work after 6 seconds, it's never going to work, so change it. Clark Connors similarly used his own strength and speed base. Now the issue came when he tried to do a striking and submission game with Zack Sabre Jr. It doesn't work, and he found that out pretty quickly because he was trying all these amazing holds that he would have learned while in the dojo. And you know what, to an extent, he perfectly executed them. And I guess any other opponent would have probably won the match. He didn't have just any other opponent. He had the king of submissions, Zack Sabre Jr. The match itself was actually phenomenal. And I think the New Japan World Television Championship might become my newest favourite belt. Because if the matches continue to be at this calibre, it was so fast. There was so much urgency as well. But both guys got to show off their personalities, their little quirks. And you know what? I think this is probably the biggest singles match Connors has had since he graduated from the dojo, and he did a perfect showcase. In the end, obviously, Zack got the win, which was the right idea, especially with such a new belt. But I bet you, in the future, Clark Connors is going to be a star. And hopefully, if he stays in the junior division, a future IWGP junior champion. Now, we're now on to the match that I guess basically sold out the card. Rewind back to January the 4th, Wrestle Kingdom for the IWGP women's match. Who came out? Former WWE wrestler, former WWE women's champion Sasha Banks, now as Mercedes Moné, challenged Kairi for the IWGP Women's Championship at Battle in the Valley. And this match, so it wasn't the main event, because only the main event at such a big show could be done by Okada and Tanahashi. However, this match went the longest at 26 minutes. And surprisingly, I know that I have been quite vocal about Mercedes Moné in New Japan and this whole match. It was a phenomenal match. It was the perfect mix between sports entertainment, Joshi wrestling, and you know what? Kairi and Mercedes Moné are two of the best women wrestlers in the world. I will give them that in bucket loads. There was some amazing offense, so high-flying stuff, strikes, elbows, kicks. They threw everything on the kitchen sink into this. They had the crowds excited. At one point, Mercedes Moné, I think she might need to know that it's not a thing here in New Japan, but she brought out a table. And funnily enough, it went against her because rather than Kairi getting hit into the table, Mercedes Moné instead did it. But what I loved about this match is that it went everywhere. It wasn't just in the ring. It wasn't just on the outsides. It was near the crowds. It was near the stage where they make the entrances. They made use of the space. They made use of the time and showcased just how good they are as wrestlers. There was none of that, how do I say it without it offending? None of that WWE stuff in the sense of the old time with two women. They were two amazing wrestlers having a fight. Regardless of gender, it was a phenomenal match. And considering I don't really watch Stardom and I hadn't watched WWE in years, to see Kairi and Mercedes Moné wrestle, it was a really nice breath of fresh air for me. It was different from the Tokyo Joshi stuff that I watched. Also, Mercedes Moné really brought out some moves that even I recognised. So when I used to watch it and when she was Sasha, and I was like, oh my god, that is offense that I know. Similarly with Kairi, so I think it's the insane elbow, some of the stuff that we've known her for when she was in Stardom in the past, and also in NXT and things. In the end, let me just remember how she won because I can't. Using the Monet maker, so I guess it's similar to her It might have been the same finisher she used in WWE. Don't hold me to that. She got the win, and hear me out, okay? I think both Kairi and Sasha Banks have been known as a paper champion in the sense that it was their name that probably got them this huge win and like something to help push the belt and give it prestige in its opening sort of time. I don't agree with the fact that Kairi lost it so quickly. I also have been critical on Mercedes winning it because of the paper champion thing. Kenny won the US title at Wrestle Kingdom. We've not seen him. I'm worried that that might be the same for Mercedes. Is she going to hold the belt and turn up to maybe an event a month? One event maybe in Stardom, and like, because we don't have any New Japan US shows weekly anymore. Maybe the odd AEW match. I want to see Mercedes traveling the world like she has promised, fighting everybody and anyone from companies in Mexico, Japan, America. Come to the UK and defend it. If she does that, I will happily accept Mercedes Moné as our IWGP Women's Champion. If not, I was right, and this is why I think when it comes to holding belts, you should be a contracted talent in some way. Now, that match was amazing enough. It led to a very handsome match. IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match. Kazuchika Okada facing his historic enemy, turned bestie because of Jay White, Hiroshi Tanahashi. Back at New Beginning at Osaka, Okada surprisingly challenged Tanahashi, saying, "This can be your last chance to do it," because we know Tanahashi's getting on a bit. And you know what? Despite the hype surrounding the women's match, and some people were quite disappointed about seeing this bout again, Tanahashi returned with his teeth, he returned with his power, and proved why he is the ace of the universe and the ace in our hearts. And Okada proved why he is the best wrestler in the world. Their bout was a bit shorter than the women's match, about 21 minutes, but had everything in it. Unfortunately, we didn't see any heel Okada, which made me sad, but we saw a pure wrestling match that was so beautiful. There was everything in it that we loved. High fly flows, money clip, drop kicks, sling blades, twist and shouts, anything that you love from these two wrestlers they gave. And it's not surprising that they had the crowd on their feet. Because yes, although it's a US show, at the core of it, it's a New Japan show. And who else is better to headline such a big pay-per-view than two of the biggest, most loved men in New Japan, Tanahashi and Okada. Obviously, unsurprisingly, Okada got the win in the end. And at the end, Mercedes Moné came out and they both stood in the centre of the ring holding their titles. If you told me this was going to happen 2 years ago, I'd have laughed at you. And it was the perfect end to an amazing show. Obviously, my thoughts on the show stem from sadness because of Jay White. And I might do a video later on saying what I think is going to happen next with him. But I can't deny it was a phenomenal show. What's happening going forward? So we've got Fantastica Mania. That won't be too big of an issue in terms of New Japan and casual fans. But we then have the New Japan Cup coming up. So that is something to look out for with some of the best wrestlers in New Japan. And I'll be doing a preview, obviously. But let me know in the comments on social media at wrestling_chat. What did you think of the show? What stood out? What do you think of the results? And for me, what do you think is the future for Jay White after that shockingly upsetting finisher to the match? And Finlay, like what's going on with Finlay? Make sure to let me know. Hit like, share this with your friends, and please hit subscribe because like I said, we're coming up to another big time in New Japan, so the New Japan Cup. I'll be back with loads of content. And hopefully you guys enjoy watching me as much as I enjoy giving you these videos. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!